Gareth Gordon reporting. Well, we asked both the DUP and Sinn Féin to provide a minister to join us on the programme, but both parties said no one was available to take part. The Alliance Party and the Ulster Unionists couldn't oblige either. But joining me in the studio is the Environment Minister, Alex Attwood of the SDLP. Alex Attwood, first of all, thank you for joining us on the programme. We heard from John Cunningham there, leading industrialist. How concerned are you to hear a man like that say, very simply, if the executive was a business, it would be bankrupt?
Well, I think what John Cunningham captures on behalf of many in the business community and many across the community is that the ambition and the opportunity and the hope of the Good Friday Agreement that should have been around us for the last 15 years is evaporating before our very eyes. And I think that sends a very strong message to all politicians and all parties, but particularly those who have been given by democracy the lead responsibility to fulfil the ambition and the hopes and the opportunities of the good. So he
says politicians are not doing their job properly. Do you accept that? Has he got a fair point there?
Oh, I think he has a fair point there. I think that too much over the last 5 years, the DUP and Sinn Féin have settled for the fact that we have got devolution, flawed though it is, and we have United Stand Against Terror. And whilst those are very important achievements, I think people have many more needs and many more hopes than that, and that the DUP and Sinn Féin, in my view, are clearly running out of steam and running out of road. OK,
well, we've seen these flinty exchanges between members of Sinn Féin and members of the DUP in the past week or 10 days. We hear these rumblings that things are not good around the executive table. You sit at that table. You are on the inside looking out. You know what is said. You know how people react to each other. Is it as bad as we hear it is?
It is frosty. There is no doubt about that. And it is more frosty than it's been for the last 5 years. But rather than curse the darkness, as the saying goes, we have to light a candle. And my view is that people are beginning to realise that for all the achievements of the last 5 years, Sinn Féin and the DUP do not have the answers to expand north-south for economic growth, to deal with narrow water, to deal with the issue of housing and flags, and that people are beginning to say, we acknowledge what has been achieved, but you don't have the wherewithal or the conviction or the commitment to the values of agreement politics that is desperately needed in order to deal with all these historic issues and in order to ensure that our government measures up to the needs of our people.
So when you say it's frostier now than it's been over the past 5 years, what does that mean? Does that mean that the relationship, for example, between the First Minister and the Deputy First Minister is simply not functioning properly?
Well, I think it's deeper than that. I think that there is a sense of tension, at times open conflict, between various ministers around the executive table.
So it's not just those two?
It's not just those two, far from it. It is a tendency between some DUP and Sinn Féin ministers. But it's not, the issue isn't to analyse what's going around the executive table. It is to deal with the issues that John Cunningham and people are crying out for.
Yeah, but, and here's the point. Is it about personal relationships, prickly relationships between those individuals around the table, or are there policy differences that are leading to these disagreements?
I think it's all of those things, but a part of it is, in my view, that in my observation over the last 3 years as a minister, Peter Robinson and the DUP want to do politics on their terms. That's why we've had the problems around north-south and narrow water. That's why we've had Peter Robinson and the DUP resisting the authority of the Parades Commission. And the problem has been compounded by the fact that Sinn Féin have been weak around all of that. So what's the answer to that? If it is now the case, and I think people are beginning to see that it is the case, and John Cunningham articulates the case, that the DUP and Sinn Féin either don't have the ambition to live up to agreement politics, how are we going to resolve that issue?
Now, how are we going to resolve it?
In my view, people are beginning to say that the DUP and Sinn Féin have run out of road. We now need people to take us down the next road of politics.
Yeah, but they haven't run out of electoral road. I mean, people keep voting for them. They are by far the two biggest parties in Northern Ireland.
Yeah, and
so whatever it is they're doing wrong, in your opinion, people still vote for them.
Yes, and there's been a lot of reasons why that situation has arisen over the last 5 and 10 years. We are now, in my view, entering a new phase of politics where people are saying there's a lot of unfinished business to deal with our past, to deal with our future. Who is going to lead and shape that? And I think people have tested and seen what the DUP and Sinn Féin contribution to it is, and have seen that Sinn Féin and the DUP have run out of conviction ideas.
So is it time for opposition? Is it time for you and some of the other smaller parties to, get out of the executive room and actually criticise those who remain in it?
Opposition is an option, but what people want to see is strong and good government in these difficult times, rather than these flare-ups between the DUP and Sinn Féin. What people want to see is that the agreement that is 15 years old isn't degraded before our very eyes, and that the hope and the ambition of that is achieved.
Okay,
what people
but
want
this
to
is
see
fine in theory. What we actually, in practical terms, what can you as a politician sitting around that executive table do to make things better?
Well, I'm one person from one party around the executive table, and according to Peter Robinson a number of months ago, the positions of the SDLP that we define on North-South, on narrow water, on welfare, on housing, on Gurwood, becomes the position of Sinn Féin the following day. What conclusion I draw from that?
Yeah.
The conclusion I draw is that the political ground is not being shaped by the DUP and Sinn Féin. It's been shaped by those who honour the Good Friday Agreement in all its aspects and want to live up to its ambition. And that's where the people of this part of the world want to go,
right.
given the problems that we are now seeing more and more evident between the DUP and Sinn Féin.
Okay, let me ask you just a final thing, because the DUP and Sinn Féin have chosen not to be here tonight, and that's their choice and that's their right. But what they might say if they were here, and what I've heard them say elsewhere, and what they've said to me on other occasions is, look, it is working. Coalition government isn't easy. Mandatory coalition government certainly isn't easy. It's not easy in London, it's not easy in Dublin. We're working together. Look at the statement they issued today on the Peace and Reconciliation Centre at the Maze. The new centre will send out a powerful signal to the international community. We are building a brighter, better and shared future together. Not easy, but that's what they're doing.
You'll get no argument from me that whilst it came at a terrible human and community cost, eventually all parties agreed that we needed to have power sharing, devolution and a united stand against terror. And that if today's decision by me in approving the centre in the Maze galvanises people to look to the future rather than be preoccupied with the conflicts of the past, I welcome that. The problem is that people have expectations and hopes away beyond the immense achievements of devolution and united stand against terror.
Will those be realised in a sentence? I mean, are you optimistic or not?
Oh, I'm very optimistic that after all the struggles we've gone through and the pain that we've gone through, I believe that people will be wise enough to go forward. And my view is that the DUP and Sinn Féin are run out of steam, and that people are increasingly looking to those who articulate those values best for the future of this part of Ireland.
Okay, we will leave it there. Alex Attwood, thank you very much indeed for joining us on the programme tonight.